The following program is brought to you by Cloudcast Media, a podcast leader in developing shows to elevate local brands, local stories, and local storytellers. Cloudcast, bringing ears and minds home.
The San Diego Union Tribune and Retirement Strategies Group present the Union Tribune Community Spotlight Show with your host, Drew Schlossberg.
Well, Drew is on special assignment. I am Dave Mason in for Drew here on the Community Spotlight, and I am proud to have a couple of wonderful people here in the studio with us today. Katy Sawyer, who is the Executive Director of the San Diego Women's Foundation, and Katy Randall, Regional Director, San Diego Protect Program. And we're here to talk, obviously, about women's issues, but there's more to it than that, right? Let's start with, they're both Katy, so we have Katy with an I-E, and we have Katy with a Y. All right. So we're going to start with you, Katy, with an I-E.
Perfect. Katy
Sawyer.
With the Women's Foundation.
Yes. Tell us about the Women's Foundation.
Sure. So we are a membership organization. Our mission is to educate and inspire women to engage in collective philanthropy. We're a grant-making organization. We have over 200 members, smart, talented women from all over San Diego County who come together to learn about critical issues facing our community and to fund solutions. We were founded. This is our 20th anniversary year, just kicking it off.
Oh, wow.
We were founded in 2000, and we have granted over $3.5 million to nonprofit programs in San Diego County over the years.
Very nice. You must be proud of that.
Very proud of it, and especially when we look at the incredible work that the nonprofits that we support have been doing, much like the work that Katy with a Y is doing with the Protect program and the Trafficking Prevention Collective.
All right, Katy Randall, what about the Protect program?
Yes. So Protect is part of the San Diego Trafficking Prevention Collective, and we actually have three programs that came together. Summer Steffens, the DA, brought us together and said, "You guys are doing all this work, all this amazing work already in schools. Why don't you guys just work together?" And so that brought us together. So I'm part of Protect. We go in to do trainings within schools on anti-human trafficking prevention. And then we also have Project Roots, which is an after-school program, and No More, which is a drama-based program for middle and high school. So we go through and try to bring as much prevention on human trafficking as we possibly can.
This is a big issue. This is a big issue that we hear some about it, but I don't think we hear enough about it, do we?
I think people are shocked when they learn the scale of the issue right here in our backyard. There are an estimated 8,000 to 11,000 victims of sex trafficking alone in San Diego County each year. It is nearly $1 billion industry. It's the second largest underground economy in San Diego, second only to drug trafficking. And that's scary enough by itself, but it's especially scary when you consider that the average age of entry is just 16 years old.
Oh, my gosh.
So recruitment is happening on high school campuses and even middle school campuses across San Diego County.
So it's not just because of our proximity to Mexico.
It's and that's something that surprises folks. 80% of sex trafficking victims in San Diego County are born in the U.S. So they're
Really?
kiddos in our schools who were born here. Yeah, I think it's folks are so hidden, right? Their victims are scared. They're scared of law enforcement. They're being coerced. So it's an issue that has intentionally, by part of the traffickers, stayed hidden for very, very long. You would be surprised to learn who the victims are. A recent study of San Diego high schools showed that, I forget how many schools were surveyed. 20 schools surveyed. Recruitment was happening on all 20 campuses. So it's pervasive and it's hidden, but we are learning more and more about it. And what I think has been really exciting in recent years has been that the community has been stepping up in really big ways to combat this issue.
Are what communities are being affected by this? I mean, you said the schools that have been interviewed, the study. Is it within the city limits or is it elsewhere?
So across San Diego County, and this is happening in major metropolitan areas across the country too, but I think what folks would be surprised is that it really is everywhere in San Diego County. Vulnerable populations are especially at risk. So at especially high risk are young people in the foster system or just aging out, homeless youth, LGBT youth. So traffickers are very sophisticated and good at zeroing in on young people who, it's not only young people, but particularly young people who are vulnerable and would be easier to manipulate.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something just to stop and think about.
Mm-hmm.
That's a scary situation, a very scary situation. And it's something that there are so many quote-unquote issues in the world, but this is such an important thing because it affects younger people. Right. It affects their future, and it really affects the whole lifestyle here in San Diego. I mean, this is such a great place to be. And yet when you hear that something like this is going on, it's like, well, why is it kind of kept in the shadows? But as you said, a lot of people are afraid to just come out and say what they're dealing with.
Right. And what we know is that once someone escapes the life, I'm putting air quotes, but that's the term that's often used, that's not the end of the story, because these are folks who have experienced trauma. They're suffering maybe with drug addiction. They have been coerced into committing criminal offenses by their traffickers. So they're coming out of the life with a lot of things working against them. So we know that recovery takes a very long time as well. So there's a lot of important work happening on the prevention side. And then, of course, law enforcement is doing critically important work to identify folks, get them out of the life. And then recovery can often take years. With our most recent round of grant funding back in June, we provided $243,000 to prevent and combat human trafficking.
Wow.
And we funded work on kind of both sides of the spectrum, really critically important prevention work, and then also lasting recovery work, because we know that work takes years and that these folks have just a lot working against them and need additional support to help get their life back on track.
Katy Randall,
Yes, sir.
What got you involved in this whole organization?
Ooh, that's a deep question.
I know.
It's a loaded question.
Well, that's all right.
Well, the short and sweet version is I actually have been doing anti-trafficking work for over a decade. I started in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, where we worked among women working in prostitution, many of whom have been victims of human trafficking and didn't even realize it. So we were in this interesting...
Can you, again, where you started in Amsterdam?
In Amsterdam, yeah.
Wow.
So I was a little 19-year-old over in Amsterdam and working with wonderful young women over there. And when I moved back to San Diego, I thought, I really love working with these women, but there's only so much you can do after the fact.
Yeah.
What can we do so that they don't have to enter into that life? And how can we do something so that they don't have to go through all the pain and sorrow and suffering that so many of these boys and girls have gone through.
Wow. How do you locate these people?
The victims, you mean?
Yeah.
So one story, if I may.
Sure.
We work with the district attorney office. So we've got loads of stories. And one of the stories that I remember hearing from someone in our group is they interviewed a trafficker and they said, what did you do? How do you find these victims? What do you do? And one of them said, all I have is time and money. So I would go and sit in front of a school with a flashy, nice new car, all my nice clothes, and just sit and wait and see which student walks by and says, wow, that's a really nice car. Wow, those are new shoes. That's a really nice bag. And then they think, okay, they're really into this. I can use this to exploit them. And so, I mean, for traffickers, that's the way that they can approach them. But for red flags, for adults and students, we also talk about peers, protecting peers. Something you can, one of the biggest things that we noticed is having multiple cell phones is one thing. So if maybe a victim has multiple cell phones, that could be a sign of it. Maybe they're skittish. They're a little nervous about talking with adults. The biggest thing is seeing a change in their behavior. So we love to approach teachers because they're in these schools with these kids.
Sure. And they see it every day.
Every day. And they know these kids more. They see these kids sometimes more than they see their own kids. So they know their behaviors. They know their lifestyles. They know their home life. And so if they see these kids that maybe they know come from an impoverished home and all of a sudden they're walking in with new Jordans or a new Gucci bag.
Oh, boy.
They're thinking, hey, I always asked, I encourage teachers, if you see something, if you have your gut intuition feeling, just thinking, just press into that a little bit more and say, hey, where'd you get those shoes? Where'd you get that bag? Just because you know these things. So the change in behavior is so important to just notice what's going on and press into that. I think it's really important.
Wow, Katy and Katy, this is it's a cloudy day here in San Diego, and this is kind of a cloudy subject, but it's so important to address. It's so important to do things about this, and What other steps can we take just as regular citizens of the San Diego Women's Foundation is helping, of course?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say for any woman who's interested in getting involved in this kind of work, the Women's Foundation is not invitation only. We're always looking for new members. But we also open our learning opportunities to guests and those interested in learning more. So if this is something that you want to learn more about, keep an eye out for learning opportunities from us and from lots of other organizations. And since I am not the nonprofit, but the funder, I will say something that anyone can do is go ahead and make direct donations to these organizations, to programs like Protect, human trafficking prevention programs, because this is it's big, important work, it requires significant investment. So we have made an investment and will continue to invest in this kind of work, and I would encourage others to get involved as well.
Katy Randall, how can people donate to the project? The Protect program. Wow.
We got a lot of projects and project
I know, all that,
groups and Protect, so it can get confusing. I would say donating your time. So for myself, I'm always willing to come out into communities and doing, so we have a few different presentations that we can offer. And one of them, we call it HT 104, and it just goes over, it's geared towards community and parents. And so we are willing to come out to faith-based organizations, to PTA meetings, to just about anything that we can get our names out there. And in those meetings, we say, if you have relationships and connections in schools, then connect us, because sometimes it may be a little bit challenging to get into some of those schools. The majority of superintendents and principals that we meet are open and willing to
I tell you what, we'll find out more here in just a couple of minutes because we have to take a break, and then we'll be back. This is the San Diego Union Tribune Community Spotlight Show. I'm Dave Mason for Drew Schlossberg with two Katys, and we'll find out more in just a minute.
Cloudcast 180. Powerful people, powerful stories, 180 seconds.
Welcome to Cloudcast 180. We're here today with the president and CEO of Father Joe's Villages. Welcome to Deacon Jim Vargas.
Thank you, Charles. Good to be with you.
We have 3 minutes. Let's hit it fast and furiously. We're going to talk this morning with you about San Diego being a very expensive city, which creates a housing crisis, which is exacerbating the homeless crisis in San Diego. Let's talk about your leadership on this issue.
Sure, absolutely. We do have an affordable housing crisis here in San Diego. In fact, if you ask about the number one issue why people fall into homelessness, it's lack of affordability. And so they fall onto the streets, especially when rents go up, and rents are very expensive here. So we at Father Joe's Villages focus tremendously on housing. In fact, about 40% of our intervention is placing individuals into permanent and affordable housing. All right, so shows you the extent of what we do. And of course, there's services that go along with this, because in order for people to retain their housing, their dwellings, they have to have the services that they're necessary, whether it's mental health services or substance use disorder services, whatever that is. We have a Turning the Key initiative, whereby we'll be introducing 2,000 affordable housing units into the community during the next number of years. In fact, we just closed on a deal to purchase and refurbish a motel in the South Bay area. It's going to add 83 permanent supportive housing units. Next week, we'll be closing financially on a groundbreaking that will have 14-story building, 407 units of housing as well, taking about 550 people off the street. So housing is extremely important.
Which means you're investing a lot of capital. How are you finding that capital to solve the housing crisis in San Diego for homeless folks? 90
to 95% of our funding is public funding. Various sources, whether it be from the state, it be local, county, city, municipality. So most of it is public funding. There's tax credits that are involved there. The capital stack is quite large, actually.
So you're finding the land, you're finding the capital, you're changing lives. How are you minimizing the risk of future homelessness for these clients of yours? We're
minimizing it through our services. We need to make sure that in order for them to retain the housing, that they receive the services that they need, that are holistic and are comprehensive to their specific needs.
That's fantastic. Deacon Jim, in the last 10 years, your organization has taken 11,000 folks from homelessness to a home. So I congratulate you. Any closing thoughts for our audience?